Sometimes you'll want to see what your remaining loan balance is after a certain amount of years. To determine the remaining loan balance, first you find the loan payment. So remember that to do that, we use that payment formula, equals PMT, parentheses, R over N, comma, N times T, comma, PV, which is the loan amount, comma, 0 for FV because we want it at the end to be $0. Calculate the remaining, so step 2 is to calculate the remaining loan balance based on the remaining time on the loan term. So to do that, we use the equal PV formula. So let's look at an example. Patricia bought a new car and took out a $21,000 loan. After 3 years, she plans to sell the car and look for a new one. If her loan term was 5 years at 5.25% APR, what will the loan balance be after 3 years of payment? So step 1, the first thing we need to do is figure out what her loan payment is. So to do that, we'll use the equals PMT formula. So our interest rate, so it's 5.25%, writing that as a decimal, moving that decimal spot over to the left, gives 0.0525 divided by N, which we'll be using as 12 because she'll be doing monthly payments. And then comma N, so 12 times a year, times the number of years. So in this case, we're looking for her total loan. So it was her loan term was 5 years when they created this payment. So we use 5 years for this. Although we're looking at what her loan balance is after 3 years, to figure out what her payment is initially going to be, we have to use the regular loan term. The loan amount was for $21,000. Oops. And we want the future value of the loan to be fully paid off, so we want that to be 0. So when we do that, we get about $398.71. So when she initially took out the loan for 5 years at 5.25% APR, she has a payment of $398.71. If we want to figure out what the loan balance is after 3 years of payments, we'll use the PV formula. So that's the present value because we're wanting to figure out what's the present value of the loan after 3 years. So again, to use that formula, it's the rate, so 0.0525 divided by N, which is 12 because she's going to be making monthly payments, comma 12 times, so in this case, we're looking at your T, and that's the thing that's kind of tricky, is the remaining years. So we have 2 years left. After 3 years of payments, there's 2 years that will be left on the loan. So I'm trying to figure out for those last 2 years, what will I owe? And then our payment value is $398.71. And then again, we type in 0. So this ends up giving us a value of $9,065. So this is the remaining balance she has left for those last 2 years. So after 3 years of payments, her remaining balance is $9,065. So again, the tricky thing with this formula is just remembering that when you type in that T value is the remaining years left on the loan. So we're not putting in the 3 years. We're looking at, okay, so if she's paid for 3 years and it's a 5-year loan, that means she has 2 years left on the loan. So that's the big thing to make sure you're paying attention to when you're using this formula. Let's do a couple more, or one more example over this. Example, remaining loan balance. Emil bought a car for $24,000 3 years ago. The loan had a 5-year term at 3% interest rate. How much does he still owe on the loan? Okay, so to figure this out, we will do equals PMT. We first need to, the step 1 is to figure out the payment. So 3% as a decimal is 0.03. Because again, if we've got this 3 point, moving that decimal point over 2 to the left leaves us with 0.03. Divided by 12, because he'll be doing monthly payments. You're always going to assume it's monthly payments unless it's stated otherwise. So again, just always assume it's monthly payments unless it's stated otherwise. 12 times 5, because this loan was for 5 years, and then 24,000. Oops, and we don't want to put a comma in there for Excel, and then 0. So when you do that, you end up finding that his initial payment when they set up this for a 5-year loan, so that's what we use 5 for T, his payment is going to be $431.25. So that's his payment amount. Now to figure out what he has left on the loan, we're going to use that equals PV formula. So 0.03 divided by 12, comma, 12 times, now in this case, the time is the time remaining. So he has a 5-year loan, and it looks like he got it 3 years ago. So he got it 3 years ago, so that means he has 2 years remaining. So that's what we'll use there. And then we put in the payment, which is $431.25, comma 0, and you'll end up getting about $10,033.45. So this is the amount that he has left to pay. Ebony bought a house 15 years ago, taking out a $250,000 mortgage at 4% for 30 years. How much does she still owe on the mortgage? Okay, so let's first figure out what her monthly payment would be. So equals PMT. So interest is 4%, so 0.04 divided by 12, because again, we're always going to assume that there's monthly payments unless stated otherwise. 12 times the number of years, so her mortgage was set up for 30 years, so it was a 30-year mortgage. And then the total amount was $250,000. And then we'll put in 0. And we get her mortgage is going to be $1,193.54. So her mortgage on a $250,000 house is $1,193.54. To figure out what she still owes after 15 years of payments, we use that PV formula. So it's going to be 0.04 divided by 12. 12 times, so now the number of years, so she's paid for 15 years on a 30-year loan. So that means she has 15 years left. And then again, her payments are $1,193.54. And so this ends up giving about $161,357.24. So hopefully you can see here, I know rent is so high in Oregon right now that sometimes thinking about buying a house, well, you'll end up paying less a month than you're paying in rent. So definitely see if you have the credit and all of that, see if it's something that's a possibility in the future for you. Okay, now we're going to talk about a specific type of loan that's extremely common, and that's credit cards. So let's go through and kind of talk about these so we understand the different pieces of a credit card. So credit cards differ from conventional loans in that you are not required to pay off your balance in any set period of time. So you're required to make a minimum monthly payment. The minimum monthly payment is usually set as either a percent of the balance or a set dollar amount, whichever is higher, plus any fees, etc. Monthly payments generally cover all of the interest but very little of the principal, which is the amount that was charged. It takes a very long time to pay off credit cards if only the minimum payments are made. I unfortunately learned this the hard way, so I'm hoping that with some tips here for you guys, you'll be able to make some good choices about credit card use going forward. So tip to you really want to try to always fully pay off your credit cards each month if possible. So let's look at an example. You receive your latest Visa bill and have a $1,456.38 balance. Unfortunately, this card has a 20.99% annual percentage rate. So that's a really high interest rate, and a lot of credit cards are pretty high like that. If you want to have this paid off in a year and will not be making any new charges, what will your monthly payment be? Okay, so I'm solving for the monthly payment, so that means I'm using that PMT formula. So we'll set that up. So 20.99% is 0.2099 as a decimal, divided by 12 because I'm making monthly payments. And then it's going to be 12 times 1 because I want to pay it off in 1 year. The amount that is on there, so the PV is $1,456.38. And obviously I want it to be 0 after that 1 year. So if that's the case, you would want to make monthly payments of $135.60. So just an FYI, hopefully you can see that using these formulas in your everyday life will actually really help. The fact that the credit card company will not give you this information. So if you end up having a bunch of balances and you set a goal of, okay, I want to make sure I pay these off so I'm not having to pay all of this extra interest, you can use these formulas to figure out what your payment should be and to see if you can afford that kind of a payment. How much will you have paid at the end of the year? So to figure out how much we'll have paid at the end of the year, we take our monthly payment and divide it by 12 because we'll be making 12 payments in 1 year. So we'll have paid off in 1 year $1,627.20. So if you're wondering, well, that's more than what the loan was for, well, that's because Visa is collecting interest. You're having to pay interest to use that card and not have to pay it off right away. So that's why we always recommend, if you can pay it off right away, to do that so you're not having to pay extra money in interest. So to figure out how much interest we paid, we'll take that amount total that we paid, which is $1,627.20, and we'll subtract what the actual balance was, so $1,456.38. When I do that, that leaves me with $170.82. So I paid an extra $170.82 to float that balance for a year. Suppose you instead plan to pay the card off over 2 years. How much would still be on the card after 1 year of payments? So let's say you couldn't do the 1 year. Let's look at what our payments would be if we spread it out over 2 years. So equals PMT. So the rate is 0.2099 divided by a monthly payment, so 12. And now in this case, it's going to be 12 times 2 years. And then again, the amount is for $1,456.38, and we want it to be fully paid off after 2 years. So in that case, if I try to fully pay it off after 2 years, instead of having a payment of $135, I'll have a payment of $74.83. So that, if that's within your budget more than the $135, that's totally fine. Just know that after that, you'll end up most likely having to owe more in interest because you're floating this amount more. How much will still be on the card after 1 year of payments? So to figure out how much is still on the card after 1 year of payments, we'll use that PV formula. And so we have 0.2099 divided by 12. 12 times, so in this case, we're looking after 1 year of payment, and I'm looking at a total of 2 years. So that means there's 1 year left. We'll put in our payment amount of $74.83. So this means after 1 year, I'm still going to owe about $803.68. Let's just, for the heck of it, let's figure out how much we're actually paying in interest if I spread this out over 2 years. So if I do that, let's figure out how much I'm paying total. So to figure out how much I'm paying total at the end of 2 years, we'll take that loan amount, or that payment amount, which is $74.83, times monthly payments, so 12 times 2 years. So that ends up becoming $1,795.92. So if you pay this out over 2 years without charging anything else to the credit card in that 2 years, you'll be paying a total of $1,795.92. So that means in interest, take $1,795.92 minus that initial balance, which was $1,456.38, and that leaves with $339.54. So that's the total interest you'll pay. So you can see that if I pay more a month, I end up paying less, about almost like a half of what of interest as if I paid it off over 2 years. So again, there is no like what's the best thing to do. The best thing to do is always, if you can afford it, to pay as much as you can to get that interest to be lower that you're having to pay on it, the amount that you're paying in interest. However, you have to still live within your budget and your means, and there's lots of other things that are important that we need to spend money on every week, or every month. So again, it's just looking through what can you afford, what can you budget. So let's talk about some tips for credit card use so that hopefully we don't get into too much of a balance. So some tips. Use only one credit card if you can. A lot of the times people who accumulate balances on several cards often can lose track of their overall debt. If possible, pay off your balance in full each month. Again, I know this isn't possible for everyone. Make sure the card offers an interest-free grace period of at least 25 to 30 days. So what that means is that they won't start charging interest until after you've had that balance for 30 days. Compare interest rates and annual fees of your credit cards. If you're going to carry any balance, try to look for the card that has as low of an interest rate as possible, because that means you'll be paying less in interest. Watch out for teaser rates that try to entice you to get a new credit card by offering a low starting interest rate. I fell for this, where a credit card company said, hey, you can open this card and move your balance from your other card over here and it'll be 0% interest for the first year, but then the new balance after the first year ends up being like 30% of interest rate, and so it ends up being crazy high. So it's great if I can pay everything off in the first year at 0% interest rate, but if I can't and I get into that second year, the interest adds up really quickly. So just be really careful to really just see not just what the starting interest rate is, but what the actual interest rate will be throughout. Try to not use your credit card for a cash advance because they charge so much more for those unless it's an emergency and you need to, because sometimes that's going to happen too. If you own a home, consider repaying a common credit card with a home equity credit line that usually has a lower interest rate, and the interest rate may be tax deductible, which you'll learn about taxes in the future. Now, I know at this point a lot of us have found ourselves in a financial hole, or in the future you may. And again, no judgment. I was there right with you. So if so, I want you guys to know about resources that are available for you that I didn't know about until it was too late. So consult a financial advisor right away. A really great place to start is with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And you can see the website here. It's www.nfcc.org. The longer you wait, the worse off you'll be in the long run. So I know it's not fun, obviously, to deal with owing money. And so it's really easy to just put it off or throw away those, and the mail that you get over them. But the more you do that, the more it's going to just accrue balance. So I know that I've had students in the past that have seen this and have gone through and gone to nfcc.org, and it's made a world of difference where they finally felt a lot of financial control, which is great. And then last little tip I just wanted to add in for controlling your finances. And again, these are things that I wish I would have known. So make sure you're aware of your bank balance, because you don't want to overdraft if possible, because then they usually tackle on an extra fee for overdrafting, so like an extra 20 bucks. I had that happen once when I bought a bagel and went 50 cents overdraft. Like my bank account at one point had like $1 in it, and the bagel was $1.50, and so I overdrafted by 50 cents and I ended up having a fee of 20 bucks that got attached to that 50 cents. So really make sure you know that. And now it's so much easier to know that because you can just see it right on your phone, usually with any of the bank apps. Know what you spend. Keep track of your Venmo, PayPal, debit card, credit card, etc. So it's so easy nowadays to not pay attention. Like you're on Amazon and you're just like, great, go for it. Or, you're Venmoing someone, or PayPal now is so easy with online shopping. All of them have PayPal set up. So it's really easy to kind of lose track of what you're spending. And this was really hard for me at first it was hard for anyone to sit down and keep track of what you're spending. So if you have a chance to kind of sit down, look at, okay, how much am I spending on Venmo? How much am I spending on PayPal? How much am I spending on credit cards or my debit card each month? And what am I spending it on? So how much money goes towards eating out? How much money goes towards buying clothes? And really looking into, is there a chance that I can maybe cut down on my budget somewhere? Do not impulse buy. This is so hard for everyone, especially now that we can buy with a click. Think first and then only buy if you're sure the purchase makes sense for you. So try to think about, what do you need versus what do you just want? And then the last is, try to make a budget and don't overspend it. So to make that budget, the first thing you always want to do is figure out what you're spending in every category. What's sometimes eye-opening is looking at how much you're paying for streaming services a month, because even though it's only $5 here, $10 there, when you add up all of them, if you have multiple streaming services, it can really add up. One of the things I always like to try to show people is, let's just say you go to Dutch Brothers. So you go 5 days a week to Dutch Bros and you spend $4 on a coffee. So although that seems like a minimal amount right now, if we add that up over a year, so if you're spending $4 5 times a week, and there's 52 weeks in a year, you end up spending a total of $1,040 on coffee. So there's just little things tweaks that you can make to help with saving money, budgeting, and being able to pay off any debts that you have faster. Let me know if you want to reach out and talk about any of this stuff. I'm happy to do that.